Maryland men's basketball grabbed a big win this weekend, but there's even better news off the court. Baseball had a wild weekend down in Texas, and both men's and women's lacrosse hosted ranked opponents. We'll be joined by some special guests to break it all down. All of that coming up on this edition of The Left Bench.
No matter who your matchup is, like you can do something special out there.
We are not nearly playing where we think we're going to be playing.
Hello everyone and welcome back to The Left Bench, brought to you by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Nathan Schwartz, that's Jonas Evans, and Jonas, it was a very big week for Maryland men's basketball, both on and off the court.
Yeah, we'll cover the off the court stuff in a second. Let's start with that performance on Sunday. Selection Sunday is less than 3 weeks away, and tournament hopes are nearly out of sight for Maryland men's basketball. Consistency has been a major issue this season, but on Sunday against Rutgers, they looked like a team that could be ready to go to the dance. Early in the first half, and it's Deshaun Harris-Smith attacking the rim for the bucket and the foul. Nice finish from the freshman there, who's quietly averaging 10 points per game in his last 4. Maryland takes back the lead at the 9-minute mark with this beautiful pass from Jameer Young to Jordan Geronimo for the slam, and that's as close as it gets. The Terps take a 12-point lead into halftime, and after that, Juju Reese takes over. 6 rebounds, 2 blocks, and a game-high 20 points from the junior center helps Maryland run away with it in the second half. Terps win this one comfortably, 63-46. All right, Nate, let's get to the big news. Derek Queen officially committing to Maryland. This was something that we saw kind of in the cards earlier. Then the trail went cold for a little bit. All of a sudden, he's a Terp. How big of a deal is that?
This is a massive get for Kevin Willard and company. And you're right, it seemed like it was just a year-long saga of waiting and waiting, but the news is finally here. Now, we could sit here and talk about how great this is for Maryland all night long, but I thought you guys at home should see what Queen will bring to the table. So let's go over to the monitor and watch some of his high school film from a couple weeks ago, because I think this is going to blow you guys away. So let's learn a little bit about the Baltimore native. The consensus top 15 recruit from Montverde Academy is Maryland's first 5-star and its highest ranked recruit since Diamond Stone back in 2016. He comes in as a top 3 center in the class of 2024, and you can see it right here. He is a force in the paint. He possesses every trait that you would want in a big man. He's got great hands, good footwork, mobility, court vision, and he is a phenomenal rebounder. Queen is averaging about 17 points and 7 rebounds per game at Montverde this season, and one of the best traits about him is that he's actually already familiar with some of his future teammates at Maryland. He started his high school career at St. Francis Academy, where he played alongside Juju Reese and Jonathan Lamoth, and he's friends with multiple other players on the roster, making it a perfect fit. Now, does he start right away? It remains to be seen. But with his skill set, I expect him to fit in quite nicely with the Terps come November. All right, now let's talk some women's basketball. Maryland traveled to Columbus to take on number 2 Ohio State Sunday, and the Buckeyes were too much for the Terps to handle. Led by J.C. Sheldon and Celeste Taylor, Ohio State jumps out to a comfortable lead in the first quarter. Taylor scores 8, and the Buckeyes connect on 4 of 8 from 3 in the opening frame. Ohio State comes right back with an even better second quarter. Buckeyes up 13 at the break. But right out of it, here come the Terps. Cheyenne Sellers and Jakia Brown-Turner lead the way in the third quarter as Maryland scores 24 points to bring the deficit back down to 5. But the final frame goes to Ohio State. The Buckeyes beat the Terps 79-66, giving them a share of the Big Ten title.
Baseball season is just getting started, but Maryland is already finding itself in some late-game drama. The Dirty Terps were in Corpus Christi this weekend, sweating it out at the Kleberg Bank College Classic. Starting on Friday, it's the hometown team, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, with a 4-1 lead over Maryland after 6. But hello, Sam Honar. The redshirt senior ties it up in the 7th with a single into right, bringing in 2. Honar back at the plate in the 9th, and no one is touching that ball. A 2-run homer puts this one to bed. Dirty Terps win it 7-5. Pitt next on Saturday, and the bats stay hot. Chris Hakopian smashes this 2-run homer in the 2nd, and it's the Terps up big. Maryland cruises past the Panthers in Game 2, 10-4. On to the final game of the weekend against Washington. It's Eddie Hakopian with a 2-run double in the 7th. He puts the Terps up 7-5 with just 2 innings left, but it's Washington with the late game heroics. With 2 outs and 2 on, Blake Wilson drills a 3-run homer in the 8th, and this time the Terps have no response. Huskies win at 6-5. Matt Swope and company finish the weekend 2-1, ironically leaving Whataburger Field with a bad taste in their mouth.
And to help us dissect what happened down in Texas and recap the start of the season for the Dirty Terps, we decided to bring on the co-director of broadcasting for the Maryland Baseball Network, Jack Suzanin, who was in Corpus Christi calling the games this weekend. Jack, thanks so much for being here, man.
Thank you guys for having me. Excited for this.
All right, Jack, let's start with that weekend series in Texas. A lot of great individual performances, but who impressed you the most? I'm
going to go with two guys. I'm going to first go with Sam Honar. 8 RBIs over the weekend. Starting on Friday, a big game-tying single in the 7th inning to tie the game against the Corpus Christi Islanders, and then in the top of the 9th, a huge 2-run home run to sort of put that exclamation point, which the Terps needed to help seal the victory on Friday. Then on Saturday, a big 7th run, 2nd inning was really started by Sam Honar's bases clearing double. Just another huge weekend for the Iowa transfer, who's really going to have a big season for the Terps this year. But the Terps don't really get there without Jacob Orr's performance. Orr has had a hit in every game this season for Maryland. And if you look at the two big innings for the Terps this weekend, the 7th inning on Friday, the 2nd inning on Saturday, both of those were started with RBI singles by Jacob Orr.
Wow. It seems like he's going to play a really big role as the season goes on, slotting into right field for the Terps. So let's transition over to the pitching side of things, because that's been the Achilles heel for Maryland over the last couple seasons, all regional teams, but that's been where the team goes sideways. Do you think this new staff put together by Matt Swope and Jimmy Jackson is better than last year's, or is it about the same?
I would say the depth is definitely better. Sure, you don't have the star power of Jason Savicle or Nick Dean there anymore, but I'd say the depth is definitely better. The starting pitching has been pretty solid over the course of the season so far. Kenny Littman's had 2 solid outings. Logan Coster's been pretty good. Mee Johnson has struggled a little bit, but the Terps have picked him up over on Sundays. Of course, not getting any wins, but the offense still picking up for him. The bullpen has been what's really impressed me. They've given guys some extended outings. You see these bullpen pitchers going 3, 4, sometimes even 2 innings. Logan Barrier, Joey McManus, just a couple of the guys in there in the pen that are really, really helping the Terps.
All right, so we're now 7 games into the Matt Swope experience. From what you've seen so far, he's got big shoes to fill. How would you say he's implementing his culture here at Maryland?
Well, he's a Maryland guy. I mean, he's said this so many times over the course of the offseason and the beginning of the season. There's no other place he wants to be. He loves this place. He wants to succeed here more than anywhere else, and he's really showing that with his guys, showing the players what it means to wear Maryland across your chest, and the players love playing for him. A lot of the players have gotten so much better under Matt Swope. Just look at Sam Honar, Alex Kalarka. You can keep going down the lineup. Jacob Orr. I mean, we can keep going, just naming guys who have gotten so much better because of how they learn under Matt Swope.
And this is a completely new team, and we've talked about it ad nauseum over the last couple weeks here on the show. But because it's so new, it's really hard to project where this team is going to wind up come late May. So where do you see them finishing in the Big Ten standings, and do you think they're going to make it to a 4th straight regional?
I do think they're going to make it to a regional. I think this team is far too talented not to make it to a regional. The top 3 of the Big Ten are so tough to project. You got Iowa, you got Indiana, and you got Maryland, I would say, are the top 3 teams, at least so far here early on in the season. Iowa's struggling a bit, probably had the highest expectations of anyone. Indiana, a really hot start to the season. So I'm going to have Indiana just above Maryland. It's going to be a real good Big Ten season. It could go anyway.
All right, Jack, that's all the time we have for you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks again, guys. This was fun.
Make sure to check out all of Jack's coverage of the Dirty Terps this season by following him on X at Suzanin Sports. You can also tune into every game this season live on the Maryland Baseball Network. Visit at MDBaseballNet on X for the link to all broadcasts. Now let's talk some softball. Maryland went down to Florida for the Stetson Invitational over the weekend, hoping to snap out of its 4-game losing streak. The Terps take on Green Bay on Game 1 on Friday and dominate. Bree Godfrey shines on the mound, throwing 5 clean innings with 5 strikeouts. And then the Terps put their stamp on the game in the 5th with a 6th spot, highlighted by a 2-run homer for Diamond Williams. Terps take this one 8-zip in 5 innings. Maryland's doubleheader on Saturday starts with a 3-0 loss to LIU before taking on Green Bay again. The second matchup mirrored the first, with the Terps jumping out to a 2-0 lead thanks to a Sidney Lewis 2-run double. Jaden McFarland led the way in this one, going 5 for 5 with 3 RBIs, as Maryland grabs another win, 9-1. Maryland would lose to Stetson in extra innings on Sunday, returning to College Park with a 2-2 split.
Maryland Gymnastics had its hands full at the Big Five meet this Saturday that included 3 ranked opponents. Number 11 Michigan, number 21 Illinois, and number 22 Penn State, along with Iowa, all competing in this one, but it's the Terps with some great individual scores. Madeline Komorowski sets a new career high on the floor with an impressive 9.95. Then it's Natalie Martin scoring a 9.9 on the vault, another career high. Martin continues to just have an unreal freshman season. Taylor Reck also gets a top score in the vault with a 9.75, but the field is just too strong. The Terps finished last in the meet with a score of 195.1. Now stay with us because when we come back, we'll recap an up and down day for Maryland lacrosse.
And we'll see how Maryland wrestling fared in its final home duel of the season. Don't go anywhere.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
There's so many rewards in life. You coming into our home was one of the greatest rewards we could have ever had.
You know, it took 20 years and I got my 3rd child who was 17 at the time.
It's so cool to watch the adult that you've become, and you really have done as much for us as you think we've done for you.
Welcome back to The Left Bench, brought to you by Terrapin Sports Central. Nathan Schwartz and Jonas Evans with you. Jonas, John Tillman's squad could not be off to a better start this season.
That's right, Nate. The Hardshells have swept through their first 4 games, including Saturday's matchup with Princeton. Maryland men's lacrosse hasn't played an unranked opponent yet this season, and that gauntlet of a schedule continued on Saturday when Princeton came to town. The Terps had the upper hand all day thanks to an incredible outing from Luke Weirman. Maryland's star faceoff man winning 20 of 23 on Sunday. That's Weirman's 9th career game with 20-plus faceoff wins. With all that possession, the Terps unload on the Princeton goal, managing to get 24 shots in just the first half. A lot of those found the back of the net, including 2 goals each from Eric Molliver and Daniel Maltz, and 3 for Eric Spanos. The Terps go into halftime with a solid 8-3 lead, and in the second, it's more of the same. Maltz earns his hat trick with a late 4th quarter goal, and the last one comes from Eric Spanos. That's a game-high 4 goals for the junior forward. The Terps handled Princeton 13-7, and Tillman is now 6-0 against the Tigers since taking over at Maryland. Here's what he had to say after this one.
The schedule, I didn't make it easy on the guys, but I do think with our guys, I think that's kind of what we sold them on. Coming here was you're going to play a really tough schedule. I do think there is something to realizing, like when you start watching the other team and see how good they are. I just think you get more focus at practice, and like the practices are more competitive.
And Jonas, there's already been a ton of key contributors for Maryland over the first third of this season, and it's going to have to stay that way if they want this late season success.
Absolutely, and we know how high John Tillman's standards are. Wesley Schnell is in Studio B with more. Wesley?
Yeah, guys, many different factors can change the game of lacrosse, and if the Terps want to be the dominant force in the Big Ten that they've been over the past years, they're going to have to step it up in different areas of the game. First up, if Maryland wants to have success this season, they're going to have to dominate the face-off X. If you look at the Big Ten standings from a year ago, Johns Hopkins, Maryland, and finished 2nd and 3rd in the Big Ten, and they finished in the top 3 in face-offs won, along with Michigan. If you look back to a season ago, the Terps won 10 games. In the games they grabbed the W, they won the face-off battle in 7 of those games and tied in 2 of them. Jonas talked about him before. Graduate face-off man Luke Weirman has been off to a great start this season. Currently, he's won 703 faceoffs in his career, which is the most in program history. Weirman is going to have to continue to dominate the faceoff X for the Terps to have success this season. Next thing the Terps need to control is staying out of the penalty box. Again, if we look at the Big Ten standings from a year ago and look at penalty minutes in the Big Ten, Johns Hopkins, Maryland, and Michigan committed the least, helping them get to the top in the overall conference standings. Giving up fewer penalties means less man-down defense, which has been a weak spot for the Terps over the years. Last season, the Terps finished 4th in the Big Ten in terms of penalty killing percentage at about 65%. Teams that can minimize their penalty minutes and stay away from man-down defense will have success during the season. Finally, the last thing the Terps need to dominate to have success is ground balls. On loose possessions, picking up ground balls is the key to winning games. Johns Hopkins, Maryland, and Michigan finished top 3 in the Big Ten a year ago in number of ground balls picked up. And again, in the 10 games the Terps won a season ago, they won the ground ball war in 9 of those games, which shows that picking up the most ground balls and gaining extra possessions will win games. Ground balls are crucial in games, and if the Terps can continue their dominance on the ground, they're going to find success this season. And guys, the Terps have looked great in the first 4 games of the season. And with Big Ten play starting in just a couple of weeks, the Terps are going to have to continue to dominate the faceoff X, picking up ground balls, and staying away from man defense. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Wesley. I think it's really important what he said about winning the faceoff. It all starts with Luke Weirman. If he's able to have as much success as he's having, I expect this team to make a long run in the postseason.
He's just unbelievable, right? I think it's 9 20-plus faceoff wins in a game. It's crazy. I'll also give a shout-out to Eric Spanos. I thought he looked really, really comfortable on that wing, always dangerous. He kind of a little reminded me of Wisnauskas, like a comfortable winger attacking the net. I think he has some potential to do good this season.
That's a hefty comparison,
okay, all right,
but I think he can reach that point in a couple years. All right, number 5, Maryland women's lacrosse was back in action on Saturday against number 16, Florida. The Terps dominated in the first half, but the Gators were able to make a comeback, sending this one to overtime. We'll take you right to the first quarter. Eloise Clevenger finds her sister, Maisie. This kickstarts a 6-0 Maryland run. Down 7-2, Florida switches goalies midway through the second quarter. All Gators from here. They scored 10 goals after the break, making this one really even. Libby May breaks an 11-11 tie with this one in the middle of the fourth quarter, but with 20 seconds left in the game, Paisley Egan scores her 4th goal of the game to force overtime. Just over a minute into OT, Emily Heller completes the comeback and gives Maryland its first loss of the young season. Here's head coach Kathy Reese on the battle on Saturday.
We had an overtime win versus Syracuse, overtime loss versus Florida. Like, this is February. This is lacrosse in February. We are not nearly playing where we think we're going to be playing, and as we go through this season. But there are opportunities for us to learn and see and play against different teams and see what we need to do better and to grow as a team.
Now to one team who found success back home, Maryland wrestling. But despite what the final score may indicate, the match doesn't start just as planned for the Terps. Drexel starts the night off ripping 3 straight match wins, gaining the early 9-0 advantage. Facing this early deficit, up steps Chase Mielnik in the 184 weight class showdown. Mielnik is aggressive from the get-go, and he finishes the job on Drexel's Ethan Wilson midway through the second period, marking his first pin since early 2023. Up next for the Terps is number 4 Jackson Smith. He pins his opponent. Maryland leads 12-9. Next up is number 23 Seth Nevels, who wins by technical fall, but then is deducted a point for unsportsmanlike conduct following his victory. The Terps round out the night by securing yet another pin thanks to number 17 Braxton Brown, which is followed up by a technical fall win from Dario Lemus. The 27-15 win gives Maryland its 5th win of the season and makes the post-game senior night ceremonies even sweeter. Here's head coach Alex Clemson after the match.
It was big for our team because it could, even if we, don't pin that match, it just feels different at that moment. That pin really just, it flipped it. And I'm proud of him for having the wherewithal to do that, and really excited for him to have that moment.
Maryland tennis had a doubleheader this past weekend, and after a 5-2 win against Marshall, it was in search of that Saturday sweep against Morgan State. It took Maryland a long time to beat Marshall, leaving them with a quick turnaround against Morgan State. But the Terps were unfazed. They struggled against Marshall in the doubles, but against Morgan State, they swept the field, allowing the Terps to take an early point. Maryland's prominent doubles win sets the stage for the rest of the game, and the Terps are dominating the Bears in the singles matches. Maryland wins its first 4 singles matches in decisive fashion, And spearheading is Maria Budin. Budin is dominant, failing to lose a single set all match. All 4 singles matches end early with decisive Maryland victories, and the Terps cruise to the 4-0 victory. Here's head coach Katie Doherty after this one.
This was a really big bounce back weekend for us. You know, we've been on the road 3 weeks in a row, played really good teams, and we needed 2 wins today. And you know, very good Marshall team, very competitive Morgan State team. I mean, we were just ready to go. Like that. I mean, we had a great week of practice, and you know, nothing was going to kind of derail us today. The team had that look in their eye that like it was all business. We knew this weekend was going to be big for us, and they did a great job executing.
Now stay right here because when we come back, we're bringing back our favorite guest.
And as always, we'll crown our Terp of the Week, Pro Terp, and Top 5 Plays. Don't go anywhere.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Got a new house. It's looking pretty cool so far. I'm teaching Louise how to cook some lasagna. Thank you.
Study, please.
I think I finally found a place to make my own. A place that I call home. This place that I call home.
Welcome back to the Left Bench, brought to you by Terrapin Sports Central. I'm Jonas Evans. Of course, that's Nathan Schwartz. Nate, I think it's time we bring in our favorite guest.
Let's do it. And you probably already knew it was him, but it's Brandon Schwartzberg back for another debate. Brandon, you ready to lose again?
So funny, Nate, so funny. No, I'm not.
Yeah, Brandon, we're going to actually pick you apart this time, so let's get it going.
Yeah, you're going down, man. You're going down.
All right, we have a little more debate style this time. We're going to start with an interesting one. Who do we think is the better team this season, men's lacrosse or women's lacrosse? Brandon, as the guest, I guess you get to go first.
Yeah, I think honestly it's not even close. I think you got to say men's lacrosse. They're 4-0. All 4 games have been wins over ranked opponent. They've played one of the most difficult schedules in the country for men's lacrosse. And unlike women's lacrosse, they're fresh off a win. They've got 2 overtime wins. I just think they haven't looked perfect at all times, but again, they're 4-0. They're a top 3 team in the country, and I just think that because of that, especially their schedule, as you guys mentioned earlier, I just think they're the better team.
Dang, the lack of respect for what women's lacrosse is doing, man, that's crazy. I get they lost the last game to Florida. That's a really tough team. And I'll say this, I think women's lacrosse has a better roster overall, a better roster construction. I think they're a deeper team than the men's team, but I do think the men are going to make it further in the postseason just by being there, being in the national champions 2 years ago. You, of course, have lost a lot of pieces from those teams. But if we're going to weigh the scale here, women's lacrosse, better roster. Men's lacrosse has more success this season.
I don't know if there's anyone on the women's lacrosse team as good as McNaney and Weirman just on their own. So I'm definitely going to go with the men's lax team. Brandon, like you said, that early schedule, just the gauntlet that they've gone through, and to win all those games, especially the Princeton one that was very convincing. We were there. I mean, as much as it did get close a little bit towards maybe that third quarter, like I think Maryland was pretty comfortably ahead of a top 11 team. That's a really, really good squad there.
Yeah, after the first quarter, I don't think Princeton got back within 4. Again, Nate, you're just wrong. I don't know what to tell you.
See, this is where you're wrong. Because what Jonas said, there's nobody close to, on the women's team,
I never said that. That's an argument between you and Jonas. I mean,
it's my turn
you guys
to talk.
Can square that off.
Brandon,
around
let the
off
anchor
camera.
talk. Let the anchor talk.
You're the guest.
Yeah.
Stay in your lane, dude.
Oh, okay. All right.
Listen, Nate, Brandon doesn't understand the television as much.
Yeah,
and
it's fine. It's fine. I just want to show Libby May some respect. I mean, you were completely dissing her. She's just as good or just has as much of an impact on the women's team as Logan McNaney or Weirman do on the men's team.
I do not want to come across like I am slighting Libby May. She is very, very good.
Well, that's what you said.
20 of 23 faceoffs. Let's talk about that. 20 of 23 faceoffs. That is more impressive than anything I've seen. And they lost. Yes, they lost this weekend.
Okay,
Florida,
so
they had a lead and they lost. Nate, you have to admit that.
Whatever.
Nate,
Whatever.
just answer
Who are
this
the next
question.
All right.
Who has more losses?
Okay, Brandon, we're going to the next one. Doesn't matter. All right. So next one. Who is the best player you guys have seen since we got onto campus in the fall of 2021? Jonas, I'll let you go first.
Ian Martinez. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go with Wisnauskas. I think this is a pretty easy answer, but just looking at these stats, I mean, this is ridiculous. He's first in points, first in goals, third all-time in assists. He won a national championship. This is very much the chalk pick, so I'll let you guys go. But we have to give credit to Wisnauskas because an all-time player that played here in the last 3 years.
Yeah, Jonas, I'm going to have to agree with you on that. I mean, he's the only player, he's the player on the only team that we've seen win a national championship in our time as students. He was just utterly dominant. He has the all-time leader in goals and points for the program. I just think that there was no one like him, and you've kind of seen that the past couple of years with Maryland men's lacrosse's offense. They haven't been the same, and I think that's just a testament to how dominant Logan Wisnauskas was.
So I see this is just going to be you two ganging up on me.
Well, Brandon's unoriginal. We know this, so just.
Oh,
Nate.
okay.
Yeah, we
you
know
did
he
copy
always
me
copies
the first time,
what you
Jonas.
do, and vice versa. Are we forgetting that Matt Shaw played here at the University of Maryland? I mean, like, I get what Logan Wisnauskas did, right? He won the national championship. He was the first overall pick. I get it. But just based on a pure natural talent standpoint, I think it's Matt Shaw, and it's not even close. He breaks Maryland's career record for home runs. He came pretty dang close to having Maryland's single-season home run record last year. If it wasn't for Nick LaRusso, who I think you could argue for this as well, you could argue Libby May for this as well, in my opinion. But I'm going to go with Matt Shaw, 13th overall pick in the draft last year with the Chicago Cubs. And you guys know I lean baseball, but this is not a biased pick.
It is a biased pick, Brandon.
It's not.
It is not.
I really do think it's Matt Shaw.
Yeah,
Nate,
no, that's not even second on the list in my opinion. I think if you said Diamond
You don't
Miller,
even watch baseball.
I heard from other people that Matt Shaw might not have even been the best player on his team that year. Just saying. So.
Nate,
I
answer
did
this
just say
question
Nick
for me.
LaRusso
Number
was-
1 or number 13? Which would you say is a better selection?
Okay, I mean,
Wisnauskas was
it's
number
different.
1.
You
Matt
know
Shaw
it's
was
different,
number
Brandon.
13.
You know it's different. You know
Numbers
it's
are
different.
numbers.
Yes,
Those are just
the number
facts.
1 is better than the number 13 in this context, but they're still first-round picks.
All right. Let's move on. Another interesting one. Who do we think is the best current Maryland head coach? Brandon, I'll go to you first.
I think it's Missy Maharg, field hockey. I mean, she's the all-time winningest head coach, and comparative to all Maryland sports, I think she's been so dominant for that field hockey program for so long. Each year, honestly, if they don't win the national championship, it's a disappointment, and I don't think you can say that for many of the sports here.
So, Brandon, you're contradicting yourself here, buddy.
Oh,
you're
am I?
saying that what men's lacrosse is doing, they won the national championship. Logan Wisnauskas was the number 1 overall pick, and you're not going to pick John Tillman?
No, I'm not, because I
Wow,
don't think he's a
okay.
better head coach than Missy Maharg. The past question and this question don't relate. That just is a testament to Logan Wisnauskas, because I don't think John Tillman is as good a head coach as Missy Maharg. So because of how dominant Logan Wisnauskas was, they won the national championship.
Who coached Logan Wisnauskas? I want to hear you say
If he attributes the talent to the player
John
instead
Tillman
of the coach, I
did
think that's
coach
fair.
Logan Wisnauskas, yes.
Yeah, and that means he is the best current Maryland coach. You said it yourself a couple minutes ago. The only
So
current
is Logan
coach to have won a
Wisnauskas
national
currently, we said
championship.
current, is Logan Wisnauskas currently on Maryland men's lacrosse's
That's
roster?
not the question, Brandon. The
Brandon,
question
you're pivoting
is,
now.
who
You're
is the
pivoting.
best current Maryland coach? Everything you've been saying over the past 4 minutes has pointed to the answer being John Tillman, and you just said Missy Maharg.
Yes, because Maharg is a better coach. Tillman had a phenomenal talent in Logan Wisnauskas.
Jonas, I want to hear what you have to say.
I don't. To me, it's tough. I think because again, the easy answer is Tillman. I'm gonna go with. I think Mike Locksley deserves so much credit for how quickly Maryland football bounced back from all the controversy. I think that this was a program that a lot of coaches wouldn't have wanted to touch. I think that the way the trajectory is moving in this sport that we know is so tough. I understand they obviously have the advantage of being a Big Ten team. I get that. But he is working with not as big of an advantage as some of the other coaches we're talking about. And to me, I just think the way he's recovered, now he just had Banks in the first round in the draft. I think he's only doing positive things here. I've been really impressed.
I think that's a better answer than Brandon.
I think Missing
Nate,
Heart's
who do
not
you
a
have?
great answer, but that's just,
Yeah.
that's just...
All right, so we'll move on to the fourth and final topic. Out of every Maryland athletics
Nate,
moment,
wait, who do you have?
What, Brandon?
Nate, who do you have?
Was it not clear? John Tillman.
I mean, it just sounded like you were coming after me with a personal attack, which you've been known to do. I didn't know if you gave that as your answer.
That, but I felt like it was pretty clear that I was also saying it
No,
was John Tillman.
it actually seemed a little bit like devil's advocate there.
Okay.
It's John Tillman. I think it's John Tillman.
All right.
Anyway, back to the fourth and final topic. Out of every Maryland athletics moment you've seen over the last 3 years, remember, beginning of the 2021 school year, which is the best? And Jonas, since you didn't have me go first on the last one, Brandon, you go.
I think it has to be the court storm. It's a hot topic in the news right now. I mean, if this was this year, we'd probably all get arrested. But, you know, I think that built memories for a lifetime. I still reminisce about it, especially considering the men's team hasn't been to what we hoped for this season, sadly. And so it just makes you wish even more so that we could have a court storm this year.
Brandon, if it were to happen again, you would never go at a Purdue player, right? You would never stoop
No,
down.
I would never. But, you know, I did take that tumble, sadly, the first time. And so I think I'd be the easy target for to get my hands behind my back if I.
Okay, I'll out of jealousy and also out of not being there, I'll pick something else, something funny that came to mind. Remember in the Pinstripe Bowl when Brent Pry is on ESPN and Tulia Tagovailoa throws a touchdown as he's on national television? That Pinstripe Bowl win was, you know, cementing a lot of legacies. You know, Mike Locksley winning bowls at Maryland, Tulia Tagovailoa at Maryland. You know, a lot of legacies there, but also a really funny moment.
Yeah, that was really good. Court storming, of course, was great. But I'm going to go with something that is not as common. You're telling me that this event didn't happen for a Maryland player for 6 decades. 1959 was the last time that this happened for a Maryland player. Ryan Ramsey throwing a perfect game. It doesn't get better than that. It really doesn't.
Nate,
Court
you're
storms
such a
happen
baseball
every
homer.
year. They happen every day. A perfect game, that is so rare.
How
And
exciting was that game, Nate?
It was amazing. It's in my scorebook. I was just there as a fan, and the fact that I had that in my book and that I was there to witness it, I took a video of the final out. It's on my phone. So just to be there in that atmosphere, to see such rare history happen in person and have it at home in College Park, that was just an amazing day for not only Maryland baseball, but for Maryland athletics as a whole.
Yeah, Nate, I mean, that's a good one. But what I find interesting is that none of us brought up men's lacrosse winning a national championship. I mean, if we're just talking about accolades-wise, that's the best moment.
See, I thought you would have brought that up.
Yeah.
Really?
So you really dishing yourself out there.
No, you see, I'm just trying to be diverse in my sports here that we cover, because I'm not a one-trick pony now, am I?
Yeah, I guess you had already talked about men's lacrosse for like 5 minutes there.
All right.
But yeah, I say
he doesn't believe in Tillman, Nate. He doesn't believe in Tillman, so it's not as special of a moment.
Coach.
Right.
So
keeping up with the logic is difficult sometimes.
I plead the fifth.
That's all we have for you this time, Brandon. Thank you for coming on. We're going to have to do this again, but thank you for joining us this time.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm glad I won this round and that Nate was wrong with most of his
Leave
answers.
a comment and tell us who won this debate. And be sure to check out all of Brandon's men's lacrosse coverage on X at bschwartzberg03 and online at dbknews.com.
Now, if you've been paying attention to all the baseball talk today, you can probably guess our Terp of the Week. We had to give it to Sam Honar for that incredible display in Corpus Christi this weekend. Honar was a monster at the plate, collecting 4 hits over the weekend. He drove in 8 runs, yes, 8 runs in the first 2 games down in Texas with 4 RBIs in both games. The highlight of the weekend for him was his first homer as a Terp, a laser over the short porch and right, which all but sealed the deal for the Dirty Terps on Friday night. Congrats to Sam on being named our Terp of the Week.
We'll go from the diamond to the pitch for our Pro Terp. And this week, a former Maryland men's soccer star came back from injury in a big way. It's Eric Williamson. Williamson tore his right ACL last April, missing a majority of the 2023 MLS season. But he made his return for the Portland Timbers in the season opener on Saturday, scoring a goal in the 9th minute. Back in 2017, Williamson was named Big Ten Midfielder of the Year and a first-team All-Big Ten selection during his junior season, but now is back to making an impact professionally. Congrats, Eric, on both the comeback and being crowned our Pro Terp. Okay, Jonas, top 5 time. Why don't you start us off?
All right, let's run the music. At number 5, Eddie Hakopian with a clutch single on Friday. Maryland just getting it done there against Texas A&M. Incredible play there, Hakopian clutch all weekend.
Now to the Plex for number 4. It's Corey Edmondson, such a star for Kathy Reese's squad. Over the shoulder, top right of the net for that epic goal.
Number 3, it's Juju Reese slamming it down and going insane on the way down. Just incredible dunk there, 20 points for the junior.
Eric Spanos with a dive and a goal for Maryland men's lacrosse. We've seen a lot of this from Spanos at the beginning of the year. Great effort from the young buck.
And number 1 play, it's Jakia Brown-Turner beating the buzzer in the 3rd quarter. But look at this pass from Faith Masonis. That looks like Nathan Schwartz on the football field. Perfectly in rhythm, perfectly in stride. Look at this. I mean, that's amazing.
You're
That's
right.
amazing.
That's exactly what I throw like in our intramural game.
Unless we're in the red zone. That's then it might get.
Really? You had to sell me out like that.
I'm sorry.
Man, you had a lot of drops, if I remember correctly.
I had to get one more jab in for how mean you were to Brandon today.
That was warranted, was it not?
It was.
That was warranted.
It was.
Okay, you agree with me. All right. That'll do it for this edition of The Left Bench. Make sure to tune into our Women's Basketball in Focus show on Thursday. Eddie Calkins and Brendan Weissel will be behind the desk for that one.
You can keep up with all of Terrapin Sports Central coverage on X, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and online at terrapinsportscentral.com.
Big thanks to Brandon, Jack, and Wesley for joining us. We'll see you next time.